Lo prometido es deuda. ¿Y quién está aquí, Carrera?
Lo prometido es deuda y estamos aquí con nada más y nada menos que Joe Lally. ¿Cómo estás, Joe?
Good, I'm good.
How's your Spanish?
Terribile.
We promised people.
Posso parlare in italiano?
Okay, so we sort of understand each other if you speak Italian and we speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Total disaster of an interview.
This is welcome.
Anyway, will be that way.
Welcome to our interview with Joe Lally from Fugazi, Coriky, Ataxia, and well, how many projects do you have? Like thousands of.
Mostly just the Messthetics are actually.
The Messthetics.
Yeah.
These days. Yeah.
These days. And yeah, well, a lot of stuff that you've done. This is a disaster of interview that we're gonna have, and we're so happy that everyone's here to witness it.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me.
How are you, Joe?
Doing okay.
Where are you?
Exactly.
I'm in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Are you home or a studio?
Yeah, I'm home. I'm in my basement. This is where I teach.
Do you wait the end of the world there?
Yeah, I'm not really waiting anymore. I think it's happening.
No, you're living it.
We're not totally aware that it is we are submerged in what is the decline of civilization.
But you have there like water and tuna cans or
Tuna cans.
tuna cans.
Nothing special, so yeah, we probably won't last long. That's okay.
Well, you have your base there.
Oh.
If you have your base, then you have everything you need. I think we lost. Creo que perdimos un poco de conexión con Joe, que debe de, como está en su sótano, nos estaba contando, estaba en su búnker. Pues tal vez tiene algunos problemas de conexión, o tal vez su perro está ladrando, o tal vez su internet es de Total Play y se fue a la mierda.
Pero ¿sabes qué es lo chido de esto? Es que quedó en una buena pose, ¿no? Porque uno cuando queda congelado puede pasar cualquier cosa, ¿no?
Exacto. No, él quedó bien sonriente. Además se ve que está bien tranquilo.
Sí, me da envidia la gente que tiene esa aura de tranquilidad.
Como que se ve una persona bien tranquila.
Como un médico, ¿no? Como un doctor que te va a operar y te dice, tranquilo, mira, el bisturí corta, pero corta suave, no vas a sentir nada.
Ahí está de nuevo.
Ahí está Joe. Joe is back.
You're back.
Joe, and you have...
I told you, I was trying to tell you that the end of the world was not going to last long for us.
We were wondering.
It didn't last very long at all.
You won't have internet when the end of the world happened.
We were wondering what happened, and we thought that maybe your internet provider was bad.
Mexican.
Was Mexican, yeah.
It could be, but I have to say that just recently, because I give lessons and it's so important, I actually changed my providers and I have way, way better connection now.
You're happy now.
That doesn't mean that you can depend on anything.
Totally true. That's we contract we buy the better one and it sucks anyway. It's like
best internet here sucks. Still sucks. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So
we'll
Joe,
what
do you have in your basement in case we actually witness the end of the world?
Yeah, if this is where things end, I can at least plug in and play.
At least you have your dog with you and your partner.
But they're upstairs.
Yeah, they
They'll have to come down fast.
Yeah, you have to carry that. And Joe, do you have favorite bass or there's like?
I do have a favorite bass. Yeah. Am I supposed to show it to you?
You're not, but if you want.
Yeah.
Which one is it?
It's a custom made bass. There's only one. It's I named it Cosmos. A guy named Dave Johnson in Nashville, Tennessee. I had met years before and we had talked about it, and then just as COVID came, he suddenly had a lot of time on his hands, and he was making the bass, and in a couple of months he sent it to me. And
that's very fast.
The band came to love the sound of it, and it's really kind of amazing because when you make my idea of the bass, I don't really know everything about constructing it, so we could only put together our ideas. but you don't know until you build it, and then you play it, and then you find out what it sounds like. You can make exactly the same bass again, and it won't necessarily be the same. But he made, it's really nice. So,
what do you think is the heart of the bass? The pickups, the wood, the feeling?
I guess those things are, a pretty big combination of, the wood and the electronics and things and the shape and everything. But it's like a friend of mine I played with in Italy. He's actually an English guy, lives in Spain now. Mike Cooper, he said, didn't anyone tell you it's the player? It's not the
Yeah, totally, I agree.
Yeah, I was just about to ask if you agree with that it's not the tool, it's actually the person behind it.
In the end, it pretty much is, because, it's things can happen. You get your bass stolen, something breaks or whatever, and you end up with something you didn't necessarily want to have. You got to make it sound like it's yours.
Totally, I agree. If there's any other bass player in Fugazi or other band, it wouldn't sound the same.
If I play bass.
I mean, really, people do pick up other people's instruments, and it's really hard to make them sound that way.
Yeah, and Joe, we were sending emails earlier this week, and you were mentioning that you were doing practice with your. You mentioned practicing with your band, which is I wanted to ask which one. I know now it's the Messthetics, and also I saw your posts on Instagram saying bass lessons with Joe Lally. So what are you up to these days? Messthetics, doing bass lessons.
Yeah, Messthetics is the band that's playing. I could probably put together one of my solo shows, because Anthony from the Messthetics will play guitar, and we've had Jerry Busher play drums. And I never see Jerry, and Anthony and I haven't done a show for ages. And the Messthetics actually, since the whole lockdown thing happened, we only started to play this year. So, and that's just been I think there's been 4 or 5 shows, like I can count them, not in a row. So, I'm talking about last year, not this year. This year, we're about to do a show on Saturday night here in Maryland, not far from where we all live. And then we're going to the West Coast to play 6 shows, and then in February, and then in March, we'll do 9 shows up into Canada and Chicago and back to this area, the East Coast area. But it's really been a long time without a whole lot of playing. So it's been kind of harsh. But that's what made me start giving lessons, because I had to find a way to survive. I had a job. I had a job selling tickets at a box office.
Okay.
For all the venues in the area, all the IMP venues. That's a local production company that has, a 6,000 capacity, 1,000 capacity, 1,200, the 930 Club and their venues. And I got a job working in the box office, and then COVID came and I lost that.
Yeah. And are all of these music venues or theaters to do other things besides music?
Mostly used for music. Some other events happen, but they are all either 2 of them are owned. They were built by the 930, and the other couple are either like the acts they booked a long time ago that are now in the arena, and a much bigger. And then one is a very old theater where they used to have all the jazz kind of things long ago, like Cab Calloway and Billie Holiday and stuff like that. It's a restored theater. So that was where we sold the tickets, in that box office.
And then the pandemic came and you lost that job, and then you started teaching bass lessons.
Yeah, I started giving lessons online, and so I started to learn theory, because I really, I didn't even really know how to teach what I knew, because I didn't know what I knew. I just did what I did.
I feel you.
It's kind of a crazy story, but it's been really, really interesting, and obviously, makes makes me happier to know so much more about what I'm doing. And playing with Anthony Pirog, he studied music. He's one of the only people that I have spent this much time with, writing, recording, and performing live, who really is that studied. He went to school and to do that. So it's kind of great to now be able to talk to him about a lot of this and share the language to be able to express and push forward. Recently, we got a friend he had been playing with who had joined us already in before lockdown and after. He played with us at some live shows. He would just join us on stage. We didn't practice with him. His name is James Brandon Lewis. He's a saxophone player, and you can probably find him playing at the what's it called? It's a show we did outdoors last June in Brooklyn, and it is a pool. What's it called? Something pool. My memory.
Yeah,
I feel you. I'm the same.
We always forget things.
Anyway, it exists, and it's in Brooklyn, and I think you can find some footage online of us playing there. But after that, we started, because this has been a period where, Anthony moved to Monterey, California during lockdown. For an entire year, he did not live here, and we dropped everything we were doing because we also had lost our practice space, and that was where we recorded the 2 Messthetics records. So when we finally got back together and started doing anything, we actually didn't pick up the music that we had been playing. We had been writing and recording. But we did start to think about new songs and very slowly incorporate them in a couple of shows that we played. So by the time we played that venue, we had James with us, and we were much more focused on what we would be writing. And we went back and looked at a lot of old material that we had left. And we put that together to record specifically with James in November. So right at the end of November, we had 1 practice with James, 2 days in the studio, recorded 9 songs, and
9 songs in 2 days.
Yes, and the next day we
Is that even possible? Like,
the next day we performed all of those songs in a club here in DC. And I never do that. So I was like, how many of these songs are we going to do? And Anthony said, oh, it's, James is here. We have to do all of them. And I was like, I don't do that. I don't remember that. And I listened to the recording all day, and it was okay.
But it seems like a path, all your life you were recording fast. I read an interview about Ataxia last night, and you guys record 2 albums like in a week or something, right?
Yeah, we did the what became the 2 albums was 1 session of the music we had, and that was done in a few days. And then John took more time for mixing, and him and Josh put some synthesizer over stuff. But I basically was in the studio a couple of days with him, and then I couldn't go there all the time, so I just kind of...
You like rush. You like to be rush on recordings, right?
It's actually not a bad idea. It's not something that happened a lot to me, but it did with those 2 projects, And this last one is pretty mind-blowing, but it shows you that James is that caliber of player. James is really a fucking amazing player, and... we all understand each other and seem to know what we're doing together. We just kind of do it. So it's been really fun, yeah.
Amazing. And this record with the Messthetics, did you guys record it live? Like, is it mostly live, or if you record 9 songs in 2 days, it's like it must be like you're playing all together and recording everything together.
Yeah, pretty much. We're talking about the first and second take. Because some of the stuff in that form, like we kind of finished some of the songwriting in the studio, like the final arrangement. And, if you start thinking about it too much, It doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
So because it was so new, it was like the first or second take, it's done. It's like we don't even have a choice. And there were some saxophone overdubs, or Anthony would sit out so he could put something in. I think there was one thing Anthony recorded at Brendan's house, a few days later. He finished one guitar idea that he hadn't been able to finish that time. But even the mix is not done. It's a rough mix, but boy, it's really close to being finished.
I like that. It keeps the mix alive, It's like,
yeah,
it's kind of loose now. Everything is so compressed, that it feel kind of plastic at all, It's like,
yeah, it's just the way different people operate. I don't like to think about that kind of recording, that it's very painstaking and separated. That the idea doesn't appeal to me, but under the right circumstance, maybe I would do it. But I'm generally like, if we've made good sounds, let's record the songs,
Totally.
So,
and how it was back then with Fugazi, for example, because people is curious about what you guys made on those albums. How did you guys record them? How it was? It was different.
We were from the beginning in Fugazi. We were very much a live band that didn't have our particular time in the studio. Those guys had been in the studio with various bands. Up to that point, I had been in, twice in studios doing different things, and recording bass for one band and recording drums with another band. But those are like stories in themselves. But by the time, Fugazi is getting together, we've been playing a lot of shows. So we were trying to get down what we knew of ourselves as a band. So we were just trying to basically knock it out like we would play them live. So it was just, trying to get a good take that we felt got the song across. And we just did the best with what we could. The first EP and Repeater were recorded in Don's basement, which is just a suburban house in Virginia.
And they sound great. That's
yeah,
crazy.
maybe that's part of the magic, that it is not, I would say,
professional
an overproduced kind of thing. You're not in a studio and doing recording everyone their parts, which is what bands usually do. That is not bad, but it's different.
Yeah, it's really it's very strange, because then we were on tour for over a month in England, and right after the tour, like 39 shows in 41 days or something. It was really insane. We booked, John Loder at Southern Studios booked us a couple of days in a studio in London, the Greenhouse, and we came away with just being happy with the rhythm track, the drums and the bass. And then John really felt that Brendan was not like on all the time, and that's the type of producer he is. So that's where you just kind of fall under the spell of the person who's running the show. And John was going to produce that record. So it was kind of like, okay. So he cut up a bunch of Brendan's drum tracks, which meant all my bass lines were off of Brendan now, and so I had to re-record all of my bass. So basically each member of the band had to go through all of their parts alone, standing in front of John at the desk. So that was exactly the opposite of the way all of us were thinking. And yet, that,
how did it turn out?
Yeah, Margin Walker lives on the CD with the first EP. They couldn't be more different than each other, but people seem to accept them almost as one record, 13 songs.
Yeah, totally.
Very strange, but
if you can go back in time, and you would change anything about the bass?
About that stuff, I mean, it would be nice to have known more about what I was doing, to be able to speak about it, to be able to express myself, to be able to talk about music. But I learned by writing songs with people, and I learned much more and much faster as soon as I started to play with Ian. And then it just accelerated from there with Fugazi, because we didn't ever talk about what we did technically. We just understood it and moved forward. You know, we just kept playing live shows, and the more you play, the more you are slowly learning night after night after night about interacting with each other. You just don't talk about it. You don't sit and talk technically about what has happened. You know, all you know is things that felt good, things that felt strange, or a venue that was in your favor and a venue that was very difficult to hear or to play in. And, you know, that's it. And then you just go, well, there's tomorrow night, and you just keep going. And so it led to a lot of frustration on my part, but I didn't try too hard to do anything about it. So it would have been nice to just know some of the things I know now are nice, just to be able to communicate with other musicians about what you're trying to do. Not being able to do that is very frustrating. So I was a bit frustrated in the band. But anything else, you know, I'll take it just the way it is.
And we do because we love, you know, what you guys make.
Yeah.
You know, your whole career, you know, it's like so good, you know, it's like,
yeah, amazing bands. But I think that the key is to find a way of expressing with your instrument. And maybe what you're mentioning, that, well, you giving lessons has given you more
tools,
knowledge and more tools. But in the end, is finding a way of picking your instrument and being able to say what you want to say.
Yeah, I mean, you know, teaching also has shown me that, you know, people don't need to know any of this stuff. But you do. It helps if you're young and psychotic and you're not doing anything else. You know what I mean? I said no to everything else. I had a couple of years before Fugazi, before I met Ian, it was just a matter of months before I quit a job and I roadied for Beefeater, a band that was on Discord, and we started the tour from Ian's house because that was a group house where the equipment was that Beefeater used. That was when I first really had a conversation with him. And after the tour, we talked again, and then about a week later he asked me to play bass. He had never seen me play bass. So that in itself pretty weird. But I had a job with a government contractor for NASA, you know, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration.
Yeah, of course we know.
What did you do there? What was your job?
I just did a stupid job, like looking at printers, taking care of, you know, changing like toner. You know,
didn't get inside the Area 51, right?
No, and you know, this was all near here, so it's not like a place that had a, you know, it was not a launch site where they launch rockets.
Okay.
You know,
it was an office
near DC. So, but I had benefits, health insurance, you know, dental insurance. I mean, all these things that basically I almost have never had since. You know, I said that was not important, because I was also kind of a drug addict at the time. I was mostly focused on just being fucked up. So I was aware, though, that my unhappiness was related to not really doing what I wanted to do, and the job was not fulfilling that at all. So it was actually a really smart move to drop everything that was considered to be security.
How old were you back then? How old?
You know, 21.
21, very young.
Yeah,
it's the age to do
that. That was the other thing, was like, you know, I'm still young enough and stupid enough to make choices that I'm not going to worry about, you know. But it was a good idea because I got away from drugs and I ended up doing music, you know.
Yeah. Totally.
That is so cool.
And Joseph, do you have any guilty pleasures? Let's change a little bit. Because we know, of course, that you guys are like a treasure band, like everybody see us as a gods of concept, you know, of something really raw and pure. But do you like any pop music at all, or any?
I listen to all kinds of music. I can't see them as at this point as guilty pleasure. I mean, I still like read about the Beatles and listen to the Beatles. Like, you know, it's ridiculous. It's like, Jesus Christ, isn't that old enough now? And it's not. It's
Still
never old
secrets
enough.
there.
I still listen to Jimi Hendrix, and you know, it's. But at the same time, I just finished a book about Jay Dilla, and that got me thinking about some of the things that I'm reading about in that book. You know, and I had heard of Flying Lotus, but I had never listened. And so I've been kind of listening through that stuff and really enjoying that work. And I had forgot. I knew that he was relative to John and Alice Coltrane, but I had forgotten about all that. And the music is really interesting. That book also turned me on to an old jazz pianist, Errol Garner. And God, I fucking love that shit, you know, and mostly just him playing solo. It's just that whole feel of his playing because of his conception of time, you know, and that, of course, is why people are drawn to Jay Dilla. And that is really something that I started to think about after obsessive listening to Jimi Hendrix, because the Hendrix that we listened to were actually all the bootleg live music. So it was, you know, night after night, sort of exploring like a jazz band would, the standards of his own music, and maybe a couple of old blues covers in a different way every night, you know, and that leads to a lot of exploration. You know, he's not overrated. He actually was a pretty brilliant musician, but he made me address that issue about tempo, the tempo that is within the musician that is expressed over a period of time and the music they introduce to you. And that is a really beautiful thing to understand about players, you know, and you start to realize that Monk, Thelonious Monk, James Brown, you know, I mean, some people, you know, it's more interesting than others, the people I'm naming.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
Those are really interesting things, you know. Even Nina Simone, there's so many things going on with Nina Simone that you can't tell what's happening. She's just, you know, she's just hypnotizing you, telling you what she wants to tell you. There's things you just can't explain for some people.
I think like you guys did, you know, we hear Fugazi this morning on the show. And it was like, wow, this is...
It never gets old.
It never gets old.
Are you aware, Joe, that there is like hardcore punk nowadays is kind of a thing? Like, I mean, it has always been a thing, but now it's getting like stronger, in the media.
Yeah.
It's getting more in the media.
Attention,
yeah.
It is amazing because it's... it has always, you're right, it has always been there. And at some point in Washington, D.C., like when we had our child, you know, I wasn't going to shows very much. And then all of a sudden you'd see all these kids in town, and I learned that there was an event that happened every year where all these hardcore bands would come and play. And I was like, oh my God, like that's kind of cool, because you know that all those people are teaching themselves how to play, to make a show, you know, write songs, make a show, put on a show. It's all of those things are the things that got me going. And it's so cool that those things will always be there as a way for people to enter into the world of music. You know, if they're just determined to do it, they'll do it. You know?
Yeah, and you guys have a lot to do to be with that, you know. It's like because of what you guys did, you know, in the past. It's very important part of them, you know.
Yeah, of course. It's an inspiration. And, well, here in Mexico it's even harder because here things are, there's tons of reasons why, but it's very difficult for new bands and independent bands to be, sure. I mean, I'm not saying to have a lot of money, but at least to be able to continue playing music and doing shows and you know,
and live.
Live doing that, you know, make a living, at least a decent living, playing their music. It's very difficult down here to do it. Very, very difficult.
I understand that very well, because it's always been very clear to me that it is it is all based on your surroundings. The conditions
Yeah.
have to be available to you in order to be able to pursue that kind of thing. Even if it's just for a couple of years, you have got to be able to, A, get a group living situation that doesn't cost you much money.
Yeah.
Maybe that same situation allows the band to play in that particular place. And, you know, all of these things are like, you have to have this, and that includes a job that'll get you by. When I quit that job in NASA and I came back from living in a van for 2 months, I went and got a job as a dishwasher. And that's where I was when I started to play with Ian. I was a dishwasher at a nightclub that it was also a restaurant in the afternoon. And it was very, very small. And it was insane that I could even survive doing that, you know. But I did that, and then I became a busboy and then a manager and stuff. But it's like that. Those types of jobs are the types of jobs that keep you making art. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the drive to do it, because many people can quit in a half. You know, you get the strain to, okay, let's do this. I don't care. Let's rehearse 6 hours.
I never necessarily thought I would have a house. I never thought I never wanted to buy a brand new car. I never wanted to be in debt. You know what I mean? So I just went for years and years where I was just like, it's not part of my philosophy of living, you know?
Yeah, we feel you. We do the same here.
But people tend to like give up very quickly. Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, the conditions that you're talking about are
hard.
A lot of conditions, so that a normal or like an average people won't quit.
Yeah, the people that I grew up with, I mean, most of the people I grew up with and went to school with and stuff, you know, they would never understand why you would behave that way. You know what I mean? When you feel that way, I mean, it's a reaction to everything. It's just, I am discontent, you know, it's with society in general. And I'll be 60 this year. And as you get older, you realize, you know, I was right about everything that I felt when I was young. It's all become so clearly, it's been proven. We are in a state of things now where things are breaking and they're collapsing under the weight of the stupidity of the society that was built. And we always felt something was wrong with it. And now the proof is here. I mean, it's not like I feel like I offered some kind of alternative to it all, because I don't know how you change this fucking thing. Except not to buy into it, you know, but it's a weird, I mean, I'll try not to say, you know, anything too insane, but if, you know, having a child is part of that. If you have a child, you are immediately, the first thing you learn about it is that you are now kind of locking yourself into the system. And that sounds totally unfair to say that, because we are all built this way to want to reproduce, you know.
Yeah.
But it is part of the difficulty of what's going on. And then I mean, this society is built on the never-ending growth of an economy.
Yeah.
The economy is in need of people. The planet is overpopulated. Yeah. The planet is overpopulated.
I agree.
That's just a fact.
That's why we are living through the end of the world right now, basically.
Yeah. It's just a weird. It's so slow.
I thought that was gonna be fast, but it's not being that fast. I'm suffering, man.
Yeah, it's, you know, the nice thing is to be 60. You know, just to be turning 60 and just go like, you know, how much time do I really have left?
Yeah, well, you look great. Also.
Yeah. I wanna turn 60 and look as calm as you look and as you are.
Yeah, I'm either, you know.
You don't seem like a psychotic guy at all.
No, it's weird. There is that, you know, maybe part of my ability to just sort of be at peace with things is that I did at least fight against the things I didn't want to do, and I did try to do the things that I wanted to do. And this is the outcome that I still don't have health insurance for my family. But but it's those things that you just I don't believe in health insurance. So of course it's not working for me.
Of course.
I don't have health insurance
Me either.
so I hope I don't fall from the
team.
bike. Yeah, we're on the same
do
side.
a band. We should form a band.
Yeah, we should form a band.
Health insurance. It will call.
It would be the name of the band, Health Insurance for Everyone.
What's the opposite of insurance?
That is a good question.
There's not.
I don't know.
Health insecurity.
Yeah. I don't know.
We have to find a good word. Somebody get a thesaurus. Look up insecurity.
Yeah. Okay, Joe, so we have very little time left, so I would like to ask you some random questions for our social media, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
And, also it would be cool that you teach bass lessons online for La Bestia. That would be...
Okay.
That would be... Yeah. Like we just put it... Yeah, you just teach lessons to someone...
Bring me a bass player.
Yeah.
Bring me a bass player who knows something and wants to learn. But I honestly don't take people who absolutely know nothing at all.
Okay.
It's really
perfect.
hard
Yeah.
because you're sort of trapped on what you can do online.
Yeah.
Totally.
So someone who's played and maybe they've got out and played with people a little bit, but they don't know anything about theory. I'm good at telling people who've already given it a try and played music, but they want to know more about what's going on with the instrument. So I'm serious.
Let's do that. Let's do it.
Let's do that.
Let's do it on the yeah. Let's find
that could work as a I don't know, internet content dynamic or something like that.
Sure.
Okay.
Great, Joe.
Great, Joe. Thanks. Okay.
So questions.
Yeah, questions. Okay, first question is, did MTV kill rock and roll?
I don't know. Believe it or not, I never lived in a MTV killed itself. I never lived in a house with cable television. So all through those years, I was actually always kind of missing it. But I was in proximity to it, that I would see it over the years, like in a hotel room on a TV, or, in some circumstance, or at someone else's house or something. But it never, and I was in a band that had no interest in making a video. So you have to believe me when I say that it almost never existed for me. And it's really weird to think back about the sort of the birth and the life and the death of it, It's weird.
It's weird.
But
I agree.
Okay. Okay, Joe. Second question is, back in the day, what was your recipe to cure a hangover? Man,
I was pretty young when that was happening. As we know, I've said that was kind of over by the time I was 21. So I was I was too young to really get too hungover. You know what I mean? When you're that young and you're just destroying yourself, you kind of don't notice. You just start to feel really old. Really, at 21, I started to feel like really old. I feel a lot better now, I have to say. But yeah, I probably, what I enjoyed was just eating a good breakfast, having orange juice and some eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe the cure is just being young.
I think so. It's a fuck of a lot easier. You have a lot more shit to destroy when you're young.
Okay. Next question is, what's the craziest thing inside Area 51?
Oh boy, I don't know anything about that stuff. I have no answer for that question. But if we go back to the previous question, just so you know, alcohol destroys brain cells, but psilocybin builds brain cells.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I need
that
more
is
of that.
psilocybins is mushrooms.
Yeah.
Have you taken them?
It's been a long time.
It's been a long
Again,
time.
I was probably 20 the last.
But you rebuild your brain with those.
Well, it's nature's
interesting.
medicine. It's nature's medicine.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, animals eat them too. Let's not get into a thing where I seem to be promoting too much of something I have no control over.
Don't worry about it.
But there are more questions.
Yeah, there are more questions. Okay, next question is, what do you prefer better, In Utero or Nevermind?
Never mind. Um, that's a tough question. We went to Australia the year that Nevermind came out, and I actually, because I lived with Ian at the time, Dave sent Ian a cassette of the before Butch Vig remixed it. So I'd actually heard the very first thing, and Ian and I remember listening, because his office was outside my bedroom, and I was just kind of like, this is wild, because it was definitely like radio material, like rock music. And then it got remixed and everything, but I have a problem with Nevermind because we went on tour in Australia, and then we listened to it all day, every night, everywhere we went, no matter what we did, we heard it all the time, to the point where I couldn't even understand what it was. Was it good? Was it bad? I just heard it all the time, and I was kind of mad at it, So it's weird. I have a weird relationship with that record, but it's definitely a good record. And In Utero is a totally good record in a very different way. It explores a different kind of music. But I have to say that, I didn't know Kurt, but when someone does that and they take their own life, it makes it really hard to listen. I was a huge Joy Division fan in 79, 80. And that's music I listened to for so much of the time. And then I reached a point where it's really hard to listen to, because I tend to hear that person not happy,
Yeah, totally.
But
Okay.
anyway.
Okay. Next question. What do you prefer better, Les Claypool or Geddy Lee?
I've not spent time with Les Claypool. I understand what he does, and I think he's super talented, but I do not listen. I just don't listen to that music. And I haven't listened seriously to Rush and what they were up to since 1977. You know what I mean? It's really, no, it's probably one a little later than that, but really, it's really not far from that.
What's your favorite bass player?
The answer would have to be Rush, because I don't even know Les Claypool's output.
Do you have any favorite bass player?
Billy Cox, who played with Jimi Hendrix, always kind of comes to mind first. There's just all the guys who played upright bass in all the jazz music. I mean, those people are just genius. I just find it mind-boggling, all those people. But Melvin Gibbs is a friend who blows my mind. And there's a local guy, Luke Stewart, who also plays upright bass. And I think most of the time he also plays electric. But, over time, I look at what McCartney is doing in total awe. He picks up the bass, very early on against his will, and then makes it. I mean, that person he's just such an amazing musician. To want to be a guitar player, being forced to play the bass, and then to do that with the bass is fucking insane, But I'm sure there's, John Wobble and Peter Hook were definitely put it in my face like, oh shit, I can play this instrument. You know what I mean? That was super enlightening to me. So that, it's all for different reasons. I have to say that when I was initially playing the bass though, I was focused on what I knew of the sound of guitar. So I was actually trying to write riffs the way I thought that what I loved about Led Zeppelin was Jimmy Page's riffs. Mm-hmm. I mean, John Paul Jones is another good example of someone, I think is fucking unbelievable.
Amazing.
But I don't even, I think it's because I don't consider myself even close to ever being anywhere near like the people that I'm talking about as bass players. That I just think of the things that I like about music, and I try to emulate those aspects of sometimes, things about, like Nina Simone's singing, is probably, and Mavis Staples. You know, those are the things that are in my mind throughout the years of my playing, because I spent my early, you know, really childhood, 9, 10, 11, 12, I only listened to R&B and soul and funk, and had a short period of classic rock before punk came, and was saved because I was like, this classic rock shit isn't delivering too much, you know. And so yeah, the bass player thing is wild. Yeah, I was really focused kind of on Hendrix and Jimmy Page, you know. It's weird.
Great.
Cool. Okay. Another question is, what do you prefer better, the 80s or the 90s?
Coño, creo que se fue.
¿Se fue?
Sí.
Joe está enojado. No, yo creo que tiene mal internet.
Sí, sí, es que... Ese
Bueno, igual
de-
ya esta y le grabamos los IDs y ya. Hola Joe, can you hear us? Hola. Hola, hola.
Bueno, pero si nos ofreció una clase gratis, bueno, hay que poner una dinámica, verga.
Sí,
No, bueno, que
gánate,
se le gane a alguien. ¿No?
gánate una clase gratis con... Verga, sí.
Bueno,
Claro, pero sí tiene que ser alguien que... O sea, que no sea un...
Ajá.
Güey, o sea, alguien chido.
ajá, you're back.
I have to say, this never happens since I changed my service, so I'm afraid it might be
Maybe it's us.
Yeah, it's us. It's us.
sound.
Yeah. Sound is good. Okay,
Okay.
well, we're almost done, Joe.
I don't have any sound for you guys.
Hola, hola.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we're almost done, Joe.
No problem.
Cool. I was asking you before we broke your internet connection that what do you prefer better, the 80s or the 90s? What was fun? What was funnier?
Wow. What was more fun? It's hard to say because, you know, the 80s was such a period of so many weird things. I mean, I got out of high school in 81 and sort of discovered hardcore around that time and went to hardcore shows. But I was also like, that was probably a particular low point in my life for other reasons, which I can't explain. I think it was just being a teenager and being alive, you know. It was just the fate of being aware of being a human on the planet and the consequences of such a thing. And so I did a lot of, like, you know, drinking and taking drugs. And so I was pretty bad off. But let's see. You know, then I discovered all these things and ended up in this band. And then a lot of the 90s was spent, you know, being in Fugazi and touring. So they have their good points for different reasons. But I guess I have to go with the 90s because then I'd have to give up the band, you know, and that was worthwhile.
Of course. I agree with you. And last, I want to ask something. Do you have any Fugazi? What's your favorite Fugazi song, you know? I need to know that.
Wow.
What do you enjoy the most playing live, you know?
Man, you know, there was an aspect to certain songs that we played a lot, like Blueprint was always pretty, I don't know, just pretty cathartic, I guess, or something. There was something about playing that live that was always wonderful. But to really enjoy and actually just kind of the enjoyment of playing the notes of, boy, I'm going to have to think of it. I'm not going to know the name of the song. That's
Cool.
It's on the last record.
That's the answer. That's the coolness of the answer.
Best answer.
It's on the last record.
Okay, you're gonna play it.
I don't even know if I can play it.
Do you remember those?
It's on the last record, and it had this. Oh man. that doesn't bring it to you, I don't know what it is. That's the chorus.
I was thinking.
We will go back tonight and listen to all of Fugazi's records until we find the song.
Boy, I'm terrible with the names.
No, me too.
Okay, Joe.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. Last, I will ask you to record a greeting for La Bestia Radio.
Okay.
Well, it's two actually. First one is, so you're putting a Messthetics new album soon, and
No, actually, it's not soon. It's really far away.
okay,
Yeah,
well,
okay.
It's been out for like a year, so it's not worth mentioning.
okay,
Sorry.
okay. Well, then we'll do. Hey, this is Joe Lally from Fugazi, Coriky, Ataxia, and because we play all of these bands here at La Bestia Radio, so we would appreciate that you send a greeting saying, "Hey, this is Joe Lally from all these amazing bands, and why the fuck aren't you listening to La Bestia Radio?"
Okay. All right. This is Joe Lally from Fugazi, Coriky, the Messthetics, Ataxia. And why the fuck aren't you listening to La Bestia Radio?
Yeah.
Do I
So
sound
cool.
convincing?
No, that is perfect.
Perfect, man.
Thank you so much, Joe. And I'll write you later to send you the graphics for this show that is gonna air most likely tomorrow, but if not, on Monday. So
Okay.
I'll send you the graphics with the picture that you sent and some weird pictures of the two of us. And second thing is, if you are really up to do a bass lesson, we'll try to think
Find
of
you.
we will try to think of something cool to do so that it so that people knows that it happened. So if you're up to, I'll send you an email later with that.
Yeah, if it's possible, it might be good to just tape something and find out if it works.
Yeah.
That
and
would
then,
be great.
then you're able to use that for a
Yeah.
show. But first, we should just find out if it works. You got to find, and I'm not. This happens with students that they're so like oh my God, it's Joe Lally and all that bullshit, and it's just like you can't worry about that shit. You have to be able to play in front of me. So you have to find somebody who just doesn't give a shit, and
No.
they're happy to just sit there and talk to me about the bass guitar, and actually I end up doing a bunch of the fucking talking anyway.
Yeah, there is a guy that works here at La Bestia. He's called Skipper, and he was recently in DC. So,
Oh, yeah.
well, we did this too late, but it would have been a good idea that he visits you and you guys do it face to face. But maybe if he goes back, because he has family there, maybe we can do this later in the year, and you can meet with him. And he's a good bass player. But if that doesn't work, then we will find a good bass player to do this, and we'll do it.
Let's figure it out. But I think trying to do some kind of trial run would be nice.
Yeah.
The song is Full Disclosure.
Full
Full
disclosure.
disclosure, of course.
Okay.
Love that song.
But that doesn't save me from looking like a fucking old man who can't remember his name.
That doesn't save you from being a guy with bad memory.
Actually, we have that vinyl here. We have that vinyl here now. We have a little store here, and we have that vinyl. I was just checking out before.
So
the
you
interview.
you should put that on after I make my attempt.
We will
Understand
crank
what
now.
the fuck the song is.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thanks for your
Okay.
time.